Good afternoon, everyone. It is February 2nd of 2026, which means it's time for our second meeting of the commission. So I'd like to call it to order. First up, we are going to have public comments. Unfortunately, Rachel did not get the minutes, so we won't be able to vote on the minutes for last month. But I'm sure she will circulate those for us to look, and we can take those either offline or at the next meeting. So with that, let's see if there's anyone available who would like to make public comment.
Don't see anyone on for public comment.
All right. And since we don't have anyone for public comment, we can move on to committees. Does anyone have an update from the executive committee? Well, I can give one, or Richard, if you would like.
Go ahead, Genevieve.
Okay. Our executive committee has met on a few different issues, which I'm sure will be covered in the director's report. So I'm not going to take up too much time here. Basically, we've discussed some of the processes around social media posts and things like that. But I'm not going to steal Rachel's thunder, so I'm just going to move on to finance.
Actually, I wasn't going to get too much into detail with that on this call.
Okay.
But feel free to share what you will as the first vice chair.
From the
executive committee, I wasn't going to get into all of the media stuff because we had talked about it in community relations. We had talked about it with the executive committee. But right. I wasn't sure how much you all wanted to share as the executive committee.
Just as the executive committee, I think it's okay to just say that we've revisited some of our procedures around crafting messaging for social media. And that's where I'll leave it.
And I did see that we just had Thea join us, so she may have public comments she'd like to make, unless she's just joining us to watch.
Oh, okay. Then do we have someone from the finance committee who would like to give a report, or if there's anything to report from finance?
Courtney's out today, so I can just do a quick update on finance. We are not yet in the process of looking at the budget for 2027 because we like to take a few months of breather between when the budget actually finalizes and when we move forward with additional planning. But we have had meetings with our budget analyst. We are looking to move forward with our contract with the Fair Housing Partnership of Greater Pittsburgh with our community development block grant funding. And we are finishing up our strategic planning contract right now. We're in the process of assessing whether an RFP will be necessary for one of our other contracted solicitor positions moving forward, but we can definitely have more of a conversation on that because I owe the executive committee a memo on those thoughts.
All right, so beyond finance, do we have any updates from the personnel committee? I'm going to go with we don't. I know we still have, yes, Commissioner Gibson.
Is there a hiring freeze in the city, citywide? Just in case we need anybody, I just didn't know. Thank you.
Yes, as of right now, they do have a hiring freeze. Any position that we would need to hire for, should an opening become available, we have to consult Chief Gilman so we can establish the necessity of that, whether there's funding available for that. As of right now, we only have intern dollars to spend for this year, and we're looking to possibly post that job in the next month or two if they'll permit us to, because it's already budgeted. It's $5,000 for the year, comes out of our budget. It's not a full-time hire, so we're probably going to post for that in the coming months so that we can have someone on board for the summer, because our current intern Amelia Morris is going to be moving on.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And any other updates from personnel regarding personnel? All right, then we'll move on to community relations. Would someone like to give that update?
Sure. So we had a lovely meeting. It was great to see everybody after the holidays. I think there's a lot of active effort into making sure that we're reaching out into the community, particularly now when folks might be feeling especially vulnerable, considering what our image is now and what it should be, and trying to build those connections wherever we can. So it was a great brainstorming session.
Wonderful. All right, so then I will pass it over to Director Shepherd for your report.
Thank you for that. So just as a general update, with the change in administration, we do continue to be a part of those directors meetings every week. So that's been very beneficial, being able to sit in a room with all of the other directors and hear kind of what's going on generally across the city. Everybody kind of has to do a more proper report out now. So everyone's got good updates for us. Definitely lots of talk about the NFL draft, but I'm sure no one's surprised about that. I just wanted to do a quick thank you for the commissioners who've participated in the one-on-one meetings with me. I did request those late. This should have happened probably a year or two ago when I came on as the director, but better late than never. Start off 26 strong, and I wanted to get a feel for what the commissioners are invested in with the commission, what I could do to be more supportive and encourage more engagement, any particular topics that anyone is specifically focused on, so that I can just hone the expertise of the commissioners that we have already, and try to evaluate for what positions we may need to fill to better represent the community.
Rachel,
Yes.
are you having any problems with the weekly report that you're submitting to the chief of staff?
No.
Okay, thank
No,
you.
they've been pretty bare bones. Again, anything that is to be shared in the director's reports weekly are things that will be on this report and available to anyone who is interested in them.
Thank you.
There hasn't been a whole lot of movement with our cases, which is not that surprising. We're just, getting coordinated again, moving into 26. So we do still have 74 open investigations, 41 pending intakes, 14 cases awaiting a response or assignment. We only have 3 pending mandatory conciliations, which is a very low number considering what we've had in the past. So we're looking at that. 4 cases in court, that is decreased by 1 because we did officially close the 1 case that was in common pleas court. And we do have 3 cases on the public hearing track, but 2 of those are currently scheduled and 1 is awaiting final determination. And then we'll see 8 determinations at the actual compliance review section meeting this afternoon.
Rachel, when looking at those numbers, would we be adding all those up to see what the current caseload is, or is that like 74 inclusive of then the 14, 3, 4, and 3?
So when I have them separated, so if you were to add all of these up, that would give you a pretty generalized number of what we currently have open. I'm trying to think if there's any category I don't cover. I mean, we have pending settlement monitoring, which I believe is at 16 cases right now that we're monitoring settlement compliance. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that would give you a pretty accurate number.
That is so many. Is that sustainable?
This has actually been okay. It is a little bit more than usual for sure. What I can say is that in terms of, so where we're at currently with our employment cases is that we have a work sharing agreement that allows us to do intake onlys. And we're contracted for 12 of those a year. We are already at 12 at the end of January. So we are going to be asking for an upward modification of that. But again, this is offering the service to people who are outside the city of Pittsburgh limits with their employment and they don't have anywhere to go because either the EEOC has an extended wait time for an intake opening. The state commission could be likewise, and we have this ability to take those on. So unless I hear from the staff that everyone is drowning in paperwork, then we're going to continue to take those intake onlys, and that does increase the number of intakes quite a bit, because the majority of the ones that are pending, I believe, are not all jurisdictional for our office for investigation purposes. So they get transferred out for the actual investigations. So if that helps to address the numbers a little bit, the 14 cases that would be awaiting a response are the ones that are jurisdictional for us, because those would remain in our office and we would actually receive the response on those. But yeah, I mean, housing cases in general are down. It's been pretty bizarre, actually, to see the changes in the housing cases since the beginning of that case year, which was July 1st. I don't know if we're going to meet our contract requirements, because it has just been so slow in terms of housing complaints. And I'm not sure if we want to assess in community relations if there's anything more we should be doing advertising wise, or just outreach in general for housing. But yeah, I mean, these have been okay. Chris, do you have any sense of, if anyone's feeling particularly overwhelmed with the number of cases? I mean,
yeah, there's overwhelmed and there's overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's
I understand it's a lot for every investigator to keep track of, but that's not to say that they aren't managing all the same. So it's certainly a higher number than what we've seen recently. I wouldn't say it's the highest number I've ever seen in this office, but we had a lot of turnover when I came in. And that was part of the reason the individual caseload was so high 5 years ago. But, as I said, I think I won't say it's not stressful for the investigators, because it certainly is, but the work is getting done nonetheless. So
yeah, I do have to give it out to the investigators, because not only has the number of cases increased, but the requirements for reporting have increased as well. We're trying to be extra careful about how we're documenting and reporting to our federal partners, because we want to be in compliance. And we're also watching ourselves to see, there's extra jurisdictional issues now. We just did a full training in December for the intake process so that we can review how to assess for jurisdiction, whether something stays with us or if it's federally charged, all sorts of things. So I do appreciate the investigators for their efforts, and I know that it's a lot of administrative burden. So just thank you for
and I know I say this every month on compliance review, but my hat's off, seriously, to the investigators for the job that they do. They always do such a nice, thorough job. So I just want to acknowledge them publicly.
Just the last note I have on that is that the Pittsburgh office of the Pennsylvania Commission currently has over 1,200 open cases. So in comparison, it doesn't seem as bad, but also that is an untenable number. So with us taking on some of those intake onlys, it's definitely offsetting the burden of some of those other agencies, whether it's the state or EEOC itself, so that we can make sure people are getting their complaints filed timely.
I apologize. I'm a little bit full of questions this morning or this afternoon, whatever time it is. Do you think that there's a reason that housing is down? I mean, I can't assume it's because things are just better. Is there lack of visibility? What do you think that issue is? Because isn't that normally one of the larger areas?
No, so employment is definitely like 75% of the cases that we process. So that's a huge chunk. Housing is definitely next in line. I think last year we took on, we had 25 between the number of cases that we took on and closed. It was something like 25. I think people are having particular difficulty with HUD. I know that they've been slow to respond to any complaints of discrimination. I know that a lot of folks have filed and had their case dismissed immediately, depending on what their status is, the protected status. So I feel like some folks maybe don't know that we exist and are going to HUD directly and getting that kind of a response and then maybe just giving up. But that's really the only major change that I can point to. in why we wouldn't be getting additional cases, because we're also not getting as many transfer cases from HUD, again, presumably because the intake process is taking longer to go through, and then maybe they're keeping those cases, maybe they're dismissing those cases, but we're definitely not getting as many transfers there.
Historically, we've gotten more housing cases transferred to us, and we, as a quota of our overall, we have had employment cases transferred to us as a quota of our overall number of employment cases. So there's more flow from the federal level to us as opposed to employment cases where there's a little bit more flow percentage wise of us being the first stop, and then we request sort of for
the transfer, so that for the intake.
Yeah, but not the transfer because we keep the case. So basically people come to us first. We tell EEOC that's how it's dual filed versus HUD, where people go to HUD first. It gets dual filed with us from HUD. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we have more employment cases that originate with us. And we typically see more transfers from housing and urban development to us for investigation, something that they've already assessed and done intake for. So we just haven't been getting as many of those.
That makes sense.
I'll also mention that the number, like the type of protected classes that we're seeing with these cases is different than it normally is. We've been seeing more of our local protected classes coming up in these complaints rather than the federal ones. And that's great because we're the agency that can take those investigations, and we don't dual file those with the federal government because they're local protections only. But we've been successful in getting those folks, into our office and able to file those complaints, even though we are one of the only avenue, and not many people know we exist still. Again, HUD's the number one resource for filing. So.
Cool, thanks. I think I'm probably just skewed also because obviously my wheelhouse is housing, so in my mind that should be the largest. But no, that's helpful context. Thank you.
I do think that if people were less worried about losing their housing to retaliation, that they would file more often. But I do think that that's a really strong barrier here in Pittsburgh for people filing discrimination complaints in housing. It's just we can't stop them from retaliating and evicting them. We can try to intervene, but we've been unsuccessful with those for a number of different reasons. And we're doing our best to serve folks, but yeah, it's been rough. All right, so with meetings and new connections, I was able to make connections with both Duquesne and Pitt's law schools. With Megan and Rebecca, thanks again to them for making the time for me, because we have a lot to offer each other. I think that in terms of what the commission can offer the law schools, we have a lot of education that we can provide on the administrative process that's not normally rolled into their regular curriculum. We can get them more fluent in what local protections look like in those local enforcement efforts. And like in return, we are talking about doing things like externships or pro bono projects. And then one of the more unique things that we were able to offer them is shadowing opportunities for those law students who are interested in mediation, because apparently there's not anyone that's out there that's doing that right now. And when we did our updated training for our pro bono mediators last week, I think they were very much on board with having people shadow them, in addition to who we have on staff to offer shadowing opportunities. So it'll give them a really unique perspective. And again, it's up to the parties to allow someone to come in and shadow for a mediation, but it will give them a good opportunity beyond like a 40-hour mediation training, which is standard, to get their feet wet with discrimination investigations and how we negotiate public interest. So I thought that was a really good connection. I think the next step is that we have, since Rita is the only attorney that we have on staff, she will be the one to supervise an extern. So we are connecting right now to get Rita and the folks over there to put together not a job description, but more of like a description of like the kinds of things that they'll be working on. So we can get somebody on, hopefully in the summer, or we're looking at the summer semester. I did get a chance to meet with Chief of Staff Dan Gilman about the commission and how we want to work with the administration, be more of a resource for the city. He was very open to that. I definitely explained that we want to have a collaborative relationship, that we want to be able to work with each other and not against each other, and that any view of us being an adversary, we would like to wipe that out if there's any possibility of doing that. Again, we don't want to see city cases. We would rather get ahead of it, train people out of those situations so that they have the tools if they're in positions where there could be discrimination that occurs by a city employee.
Rachel, I just want to comment real quick there. I would be very cautious though to imply that you're a partner, though, just because while not adversarial, there is an accountability component to the role that you play with the city, and I don't want to necessarily to waive that because I think that is an important role of the commission.
For sure, yeah, I did break it out for Chief Gilman in the way that because we're a small staff and there's only 8 of us, it's kind of all hands on deck for everything, right? But that doesn't mean that our investigations aren't neutral and that we can't proceed in a neutral manner when it comes to enforcement. So when I was talking to him, I said, yes, we do enforcement well, and we do have people who are very much in the space of making sure that they're neutral when they're engaging with people. But then we have this other piece of what we do where we're trying to be more proactive and be a resource for what exists in the law, what guidance can we offer so that we can try to get ahead of things. So I think I was successfully able to explain to him that, like, while we don't have divisions, sort of like the Philadelphia Commission has a community relations division and then a compliance division, where it's very separate. They're going to get information just from me, and I am doing both. I'm doing monitoring, I'm doing, enforcement, I'm also doing outreach.
And then I have a follow-up question too. Did you discuss any potential training for employees similar to what we do for housing for landlords?
I did mention that we could do training. And we didn't get into specifics. It was a very brief meeting, and he's a busy man trying to organize additional snow plows at that point because it was right before the storm hit. So we didn't get a chance to get into specific types of training, but I did cover the types of discrimination that we actually cover, like categorically, and the things that we've been doing, where I did mention that we do CLEs now for the employment discrimination process. We do those fair housing trainings. And actually on that last piece, Megan Hammond from Fair Housing Partnership has a meeting with him in the coming weeks to discuss the more pertinent fair housing issues that we've been facing. And this morning I was able to get confirmation that Chief Gilman will be bringing me in on these conversations. So it's good where there's communication, and that's really what we want. We want to be able to communicate and not have it just be radio silence because there's a case open.
Well, and I think also too, it's important, an ounce of prevention, right? We do the trainings for landlords, we do the trainings for people in hiring. So we need to treat them like any other employer in the city.
Right. And we already have cases of our process rolled into the orientation program. I was able to sit in on that and give comment to the folks who were running that training for any new employees. So they were able to add more local statistics to their presentation, which was good because they had like some national EEOC statistics, which can be very different from what we're seeing here in Pittsburgh. It has us as a resource now. We were able to also offer additional information on the domestic violence prevention because they rolled that into their orientation training program as well. So we do have pieces of what we do in the process already, and have been able to give more direct input to the folks in HR when they're doing those initial trainings for city employees. What I don't know is whether they added the piece about being liable as a city employee for the discrimination under 659 to 7. And I think that's fair to, offer people at the very beginning. Granted, they're getting a ton of information at orientation, so they're probably going to forget. But knowing that we've given them the information up front so that they can be cautious and aware of how this might, affect them and the entire city, it's better for them to know up front that they can be liable. But again, I don't know if that specifically was added or not. We've had an unusual number of young folks contact us recently to talk about what the commission does. Alina was a high school student that I had the opportunity to chat with. Such a bright girl, oh my gosh. I look back at myself as a high schooler and I'm like, nope, I was nothing like that. I couldn't speak to a stranger on a screen. That would have been tough. And likewise, Morgan from college, she's a college student. She goes to the University of Ohio, and she was just, they both wanted to just discuss career paths, human rights, what the commission does. And then I was able to get into some of my own personal background because I had paralegal background, and they were looking into some things like that. So I did end up getting a chance to make some connections for them so that they can pursue additional conversations with people who have different areas of expertise and can offer additional perspective on what their career would actually look like, which I think is really valuable. Again, if I had been a high school student with the opportunity to get some kind of real world perspective from someone about like, hey, if I'm a paralegal, what does that actually mean? Like, I know what it says on paper, but what does it feel like every day? It would have helped a lot. So, yeah. And then last, I was able to reconnect with the City County Task Force on Disabilities at their monthly meeting. I had fallen off their radar for a while there. I believe it was during the transition of, well, I mean, there hasn't been a transition yet, but when they lost the city's ADA coordinator, I think that when they restructured the meeting invites, I just wasn't on there. So I did get back on and got to hear about what their priorities are. They're very focused on the city getting that ADA coordinator position filled. There's some, upset about the fact that the Office of Equal Protection has been moved into the law department, but there's a lot of reasons for that. And I'm just looking forward to being able to continue on these meetings and branch out with some of our contacts, because there were so many more people on the meeting than what I remember. And I would love to be able to just build those bridges now with some of those folks so that we can, again, get out in the community, get ahead. And also we're looking at doing an additional continuing legal education course this summer, probably on housing and how to assess reasonable accommodations modifications, specifically looking at service and support. So that would be definitely of use to those folks. I was invited by the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission to participate in monthly civil tension reduction task force meetings. I was able to attend the one for January. It was really good. It was more of a presentation and information session on Native American discrimination and the layers that go along with that. It was very informative. I'm looking forward to the next one. I don't know if this is more of just providing information from different organizations, or if we will ever at some point sit down and actually talk through how do we reduce tension in our communities, because I know that they've definitely been working on that. So waiting to see more about that. Our intern, Amelia, she's preparing letters to different community organizations right now so that we can inquire about their work, engage in collaboration between our agencies. We've got a couple like between Trans Uniting, YMCA, YWCA, our Streets Collective. Like we're really trying to get out and make stronger connections with these agencies that we haven't worked with before. And then likewise, she's actually putting together a list for me of agencies that we've already worked with, either folks that we've already connected with or have done some kind of training for, so that we can follow up and offer that again, instead of just doing it once and letting it drop. So we'll be following up on that, and I can give more details to community relations if you all like. Jeff and Rita and I were able to work together to update our presentation for the Urban Lanes Homeownership Workshop. So we have a space every month as a part of their homeownership program, an hour and a half to talk about fair housing and how to assess for potential fair housing issues. And so we've had some interesting cases come up lately with lending, so we wanted to put more real world examples in there. We also added things like housing status, and additional an additional example about survivors of domestic violence as well. So just expanding upon that, it's been a while since we've changed it up, and Jeff's been adding additional news clips and videos as well, because we've been using the same one since I got trained on how to do that program. So maybe sometimes we change it up. I'm sure Leetta will be excited. I have joined a group of fair housing advocates to discuss creating new guidance for service and support animals. And this is directly related to the fact that HUD has rescinded their guidance on those topics, and people have questions. We had someone reach out via email not too long ago asking specifically about emotional support animals and assessing whether they could charge additional fees or just deny the animal outright. And I was able to respond to that just fine, but it would have been really great to have that guidance handy to share with them. So now that we don't have that HUD guidance, we're working on how do we, in the state of Pennsylvania, come together to put something together that's going to be consistent across all of the municipalities, so that we don't have to do these individual municipality guidance documents. And we're, like I mentioned, we're also talking about having a CLE on this topic as well, because it's just something that disability is the #1 filing status for housing, and I don't see that changing. So if we can get ahead of it with additional education, get to some of these attorneys who are doing other types of housing cases, then maybe we can avoid the additional disability cases that would come our way. Amelia and I were able to finally meet with the Brashear Association to discuss collaboration. We're looking specifically at their employment program, because they provide services for people who are either unemployed or underemployed. They have a great way that they provide transportation for folks, so they can give people really heavily discounted bus fare so that they can get to and from a job. They're currently working on building out and making connections with training programs so that they can better direct people into a way to expand their knowledge and then get additional employment opportunities. But they hold monthly job fairs. And so I asked specifically if we could become a part of those so that we can talk to both the potential employees and the employers, offer any assistance that we can in terms of, hey, these are the protections here in the city of Pittsburgh. You may not know that you can file based on something that happened during an application or an interview process, but you can. So we're trying to just connect that a little bit better and see what we can do there. We're also looking to try and do a training for their staff, because they have about 20 people. And as they're providing services and getting tons and tons of calls, it sounds like they get a lot of housing calls actually, but they don't do housing programs. So we can be a tool in their toolbox to refer people out when they have something that they can't handle themselves. I mentioned that we had done an updated training for some of our pro bono mediators. Rita joined me for that because she does definitely the most mediations that we do here at the commission, and she has a really high success rate. So being able to provide more concrete examples for our pro bono folks. And again, these are attorneys, people who have gone through a 40-hour mediation program and have also come to us for our training specifically on our processes to do mediations on our behalf. So we gave them a toolkit essentially through Google Drive so that they have access to all of the documentation now, damages worksheets, settlement templates, all the things that they would need to conduct a mediation on our behalf. And we covered more about public interest relief, the potential remedies that can come out of these types of cases that we see that can go beyond just the monetary. And I don't know, we had only a handful of our pro bono folks. I think we have another one scheduled for maybe a week from now or so. But out of the approximately 10 that we have, they all love to participate. And again, they were also very willing to be shadowed for those law students too. So that's been really great. So I don't say it enough, but thank you, pro bono mediators. I hope somebody's watching this. We are going to have our regular Black History Month interview with Championship Chase. Commissioner Morris is going to take that on. He's currently coordinating with Ty Miller to get that done. Thank you, Commissioner. I thought of it a little bit early this year and actually pinged him first before he said, hey, can you schedule this within the next 2 days? So we were able to get a little bit of lead time there. But with the draft coming up, any exposure on that kind of channel will be good for us. Finally, our staff were invited to participate in the Restore training through Violence Prevention Network USA. If anyone remembers Aaron Erb, the former director of Just Mediation Pittsburgh, he now works as the director of over at Violence Prevention Network, and in a division where they provide this training on how to assess for potential for violent extremism. And so with our staff having so much engagement with the public, taking these inquiry calls, going out in the community and having conversations, I thought it would be really great for us to have that kind of training so that we can assess for any potential issues. Because the best way to get ahead of the violence prevention is just the early detection. And that was one of those things that came up during the Eradicate Hate Summit last year that we wanted to implement. So I was glad we were able to get folks in. That's actually where Rita and Dave are right now if they're not on this meeting. And then in terms of upcoming events, we do still have the Pittsburgh Racial Justice Summit on the 21st of this month, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the CCAC Allegheny campus. We're going to have our tabling there. And again, only one person's permitted to be at the table at a time. So if you are interested in tabling, please let me know so that we can get you on the schedule and make sure that we don't have any overlaps. And then also on March 28th, the Human Rights City Alliance is going to hold their third annual Housing Justice Summit. I don't know a whole ton about that yet, except for it's going to be in the same space that it always is, so that Frick Fine Arts building over in Oakland. But yeah, if you're interested, stay tuned. I'll try and provide more details as we move forward. That's it today.
All right, thank you so much for the reports. Next up, we have any old business, which I don't believe that we have any old business pending, unless you have anything that you can recall.
I don't think that we do. Yeah, January was pretty quick meeting. I don't think we had anything lingering.
Right. And then I don't think we have, does anyone, oh, I see under new business, we do have finalizing our strategic plan.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention because I know that this has been going on for years at this point, where we've been working with a vendor to create our strategic plan. I am in the process of finalizing that with the Lewis Metrower group right now. So if anyone is interested in participating in the final visioning session for the strategic plan, where we're just going to review what we have, what the priorities are, how we want to stagger this over the next couple of years in terms of priority. And if you have any final additions to what we have, please let me know and I can get you included in the final meetings that we have on this. But otherwise, hopefully at our March meeting, I will have a draft for you to review. And once we move forward and approve that, we can make it public.
Wonderful, thank you. Does anyone else have any other new business they would like to bring up? All right, then that brings us to the end of our meeting. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Right. May I have a second?
I
Sure.
second.
Okay.
There you go.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
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 All right, so our meeting is adjourned.